Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. My name is Kieran McMahon, and this is my new social media outlet. Welcome to the abyss. Welcome to the abyss, that which is my mind. So, essentially, the function of what I want to try and achieve with this channel is essentially just talk about different ideas that I've had and different things I've come across, be it engineering, be it history, be it ancient history, be it current affairs, you name it. I will probably talk about it on this channel at some stage. Um, the ultimate aim is to get people talking, maybe try to inspire some people, meet new people, and hopefully get encounter new people with similar ideas. Surely that is essentially what the internet should be about. Um, this particular episode is I want to talk about is one kind of aspect of Irish myth, and essentially what I want to prove to be a true account of history as opposed to being slandered as mythology. Um, I find that given the way the world has gone, I think the world has gone to hell in a handbasket essentially. People seem to have lost a lot of their morals and I don't know respect for each other and their culture. But I'm coming from solely an Irish perspective that considering the history that is here, and I'm not just talking about the 800 years of Britain, be it the Vikings or the Normans. This history was, goes way further back here, and it's something that's truly amazing, and it's something that should be discussed. Um, and I do think that people really need to reconnect with this history because it is truly interesting and it's essentially it is who we are. Obviously, my name goes back thousands of years here, and I'm sure there's plenty of other Max and Knowles in Ireland and across the world who have a strong connection to Ireland and they don't really know their own history. You know what I mean? But the reason I want to focus on Irish myth in particular in this episode is I be a big follower of the lost civilization theories and stuff like that from the likes of Graham Hancock. Well, personally, I've always had a love for history. Obviously coming from a Gaelic background, not a Gaelic speaking background, but I love Gaelic history in my family. Um, obviously by the surnames, McMahon and O'Neill. Um, that I always had a strong connection to history, be it from obviously Ireland, as I said, Greeks, Romans. In more recent times, I've really become interested in the Hindus and the Sumerians, and obviously the all the South American stuff, North American stuff, essentially all across the world, because we're all connected at one stage, but that connection has been lost. Now, hopefully I will do justice to some of the great channels that I followed. The likes of Bright Insight, Ancient Architects, Ancient Origins, NEXT, you name them, I've probably watched them. There's loads of others there I'm probably leaving out, and I apologise for that. But to be honest with you, I've no script here. I'm just chatting away. I find it better to just be myself as opposed to coming off some script. So without further ado, I am going to start going into my discussion here in this particular presentation on Irish myth and Irish true account of Irish history. So the next slide is going to be talking about the Lar B. So I'm not going to read out the slides. You can read them for yourself. This particular slide came from the Royal Irish Academy, and there's plenty of resources online to cross compare notes and whatever you feel like that, whatever floats your boat. But essentially, what the Leabhar Cabala Ireland is known as the Book of the Takings of Ireland. So it's a collection of different stories and myths and poems, etc., that talk about Irish mythology, and it's been written and transcribed and translated by all sorts of different people. There's loads of different versions out there. Now, the official version that we tend to follow is from a bloke called R.A. McAllister. Um, we'll talk about him in the later slides there, but um, he he is the official translator. We go by his official translation in regards to these stories. Now, as I said to you, there's numerous texts out there, and as far as I'm aware, there's plenty that haven't been translated officially either. But it's all different mythological cycles. So I'm going to go through the different settlers of Ireland in the next coming slides here. And what's going to happen is there's a strong connection. Obviously, Ireland be known to be very Christian. Um, Obviously, St. Patrick and St. Brendan the Navigator. And the original tellings of these stories are essentially coming from the likes of Brendan the Navigator translating Irish verbal story into the written form to really protect our culture. And again, this is essentially what I want to achieve with discussing this topic, to reinvigorate that passion for our culture, as in the Irish Gaelic culture, and hopefully inspire others who aren't Irish into looking into it. But as I said, I shall carry on. So the first person mentioned in the Book of Evasions is a lady called Cesar. So as you can read there, she is the granddaughter of Noah, um, through the non-biblical son named Bith. And there's some different stories say she was told to go to Ireland to escape the flood, or she wasn't actually allowed onto Noah's Ark, so she left the Ark to land in Ireland. But again, different stories, different strokes, different strokes for different blokes. You know what I mean? But this is essentially what the story is. You can read all about her there. Well, what is particularly interesting about the story, this and obviously ancient civilization heads, etc. Cesar's story is a telling of before the flood. So she's mentioned before the flood actually happened, which is quite interesting. And then for other people that don't know, I do have some interest in other Abrahamic religions, be it Judaism and Islam, also other religions, Zoroastrianism, etc. Quite an interesting. Obviously, the Hindu stories, etc. But there's one thing of interest is the Noah. Second is Bith. Third is obviously Cesar. Fourth is before the flood story, and then obviously you have the flood story within itself. So you name the culture across this world, they have a flood myth, which is very interesting. But from my research and from following different people, nobody actually knows that Ireland has its own similar story that I think could be key to the wider story, essentially. So as I said, you can read up about Cesar there, just a small synopsis there. Um, I will carry on to the next slide there. So in Ireland, you had the second group, or a group that came up after the flood. So you can call them number two, or you can call Partholon number two. But these lads are essentially the cross compare of the Titans in Greek mythology. Um, they fought Partholon. They later fought the two of Daydalan. They were known to be giants, and they're also known to be sea raiders that came up from the sea or the underworld, which again is quite interesting because if you look at the different myths across the different realms in this world, that there's a lot of mention of the underworld, there's toxic giants, etc., etc. So as I said, you can have a quick read of that there, pause it if you feel like it, or simply Google it. There's plenty of resources out there online for it. And the next group is Partholon. So Partholon came to Ireland after the flood. He came up from Greece. Um, Now it does specifically mention. Now again, as I said to you, the stuff that's interesting here is Noah and his sons. So Noah had three sons, official sons. There was Japhet, Shem, Ham, and the non-biblical son was Bith. So as you can see here, Partholon was known to be one of the sons of Japhet. So Japhet was Europe, Ham was Asia, and Shem was Africa. I think now with this, there's a slide further on down. You'll see what I'm talking about. But again, it's interesting the Noah's Ark story, the flood myth, the unknown son. Um, but there's an also, if anyone has never been to Ireland and intends to take a trip to Ireland, Kerry is a beautiful spot. Now, I'm a Dub originally myself, but Kerry's one of my favourite places to go to. Um, but I'm sure if you have been to Ireland, you know all about Kerry. Now, said there's a couple of different takes here. Partholon, Fa, the Fomorians, and then there's another story where they didn't. And then, as I said, there's just a different collection of myths here. So the next people who came to Ireland were the Nemedians, or Nemed and his law. So um, Nemed came after the Partholon's law. They don't. They were oppressed by the Fomorians. They rose up against them. Eventually, there's a fallout. The survivors go north into the world, become the Tuatha De Danann. Others go into Britain, and then the others go into Greece, go back into Greece, and eventually become the Fair Bogue, which will be talked about in the next slide. So the Fair Bogue are known as the Men of the Bag. They were a group that previously abandoned Ireland, went to different parts of Europe, and then eventually came back. So as you can see, there's a constant back and forth between Ireland, Britain, and the continent. Now, as I said previously, this is quite interesting because I don't think a lot of people know that there has been this connection with Ireland and the continent, um, because like I'm sure if you thought they're the average European, Ireland is just an Ireland on the west. It's just like, oh, they have Guinness there, oh, there's cows and sheep and all, yeah, but nobody really knows much about it. Obviously, apart from even Irish, the most Irish people know nothing about Ireland really in regards to this mythological cycles, you know. But again, it's all quite interesting because it's ties into the history, be it the Scythians, be it the Israelites, arguably the Sumerians and stuff like that. There is quite again, there'll be other episodes here now we can discuss all this, but as I said, I want to try and do as brief a synopsis on each of these as possible. Again, you can read up about this on your own time. I'm gonna try and make this interesting and not bore the bejesus out of you. So the two of the Danann are the next group. So the two of the Danann are the folk of the goddess Danu. Now again, if you know much about the Bible, these people were kings. They are specifically related to the sea, so Sidhe, and they're the people of the mount. You can actually relate that to the likes of the Game of Thrones, the Children of the Forest, in my opinion. Um, but the two a date and man. Now we've already had biblical context here with the likes of the Noah's Ark, the sons of Noah. But what you also have here now is the two a day Danann. So if anyone is familiar with the story of the lost tribes of Israel, there's another interesting connection here. The two a day Danann are specifically thought to be the lost tribes of Israel, aka the tribe of Dan. Now, again, there is quite a lot to this, so this will be another video, but just again, brief synopsis of what I'm talking about. But again, really, really interesting. Once you get into it, the appetite for this will probably be insatiable, just as it is mine and my friend Linda the Witch from Wexford, because we've had lots of great discussions about this true history here, and we'll probably get her on to uh, chat as well at some point in the future. So the last group of people that came into Ireland were the Mians. So the Mians are known as the Gaels. So as you can see, they sailed to Ireland from Iberia. Now, as I said, you can see there's a connection. Ireland, Spain, Greece. They go back and forth, back and forth. And as it says, now granted, as it says, the Tuatha De Danann, the Mians, the Faribault, the Partholonians, the Medians, these people are all related in the grand scheme of things. And even Cesar, if you go back, think the generations of Noah, again, biblical context. Um, so as I said, you can look at this up. So most modern Irish people take their descent from the Milesians. So or the sons of Mil. So the sons of Mil Hispania is the correct term for them. But in Irish mythology, there is genealogies you can all trace yourself back there. I am say myself, my dad's side, I'm a McMahon. I'm a McMahon of the Thomond branch. Say we go from the Thomond, McMahons, we descend from Brian Baru, who was a High King, blah blah. As I said, you can look into this yourself. Now, as I know, you've pretty as you pretty heard me say already, the generations of Noah. So it's also called the Table of Nations of Origins. The theme is a genealogy of the sons of Noah according to the Hebrew Bible and their sons. This map here states that Sem had Asia, Japheth was Europe, and Cam or Ham had Africa. I might have made a mistake in the pronunciation, so please forgive me. This is my first time doing something like this, so there's going to be teething problems here. But I shall carry on regardless. So, the critique of the Irish myths. So, as I said previously, most people have probably never heard of Irish myths, number one. Number two, they probably never heard of the generations of Noah. Number three, they probably never heard of the connections with Irish mythology and the generations of Noah. But for argument's sake, we will just read out this paragraph. So, the critique of the Irish myths. For many centuries, the Lower Gabala Ireland was accepted as the accurate and reliable account of the history of Ireland. As late as the 17th century, Geoffrey Keaton drew on it while writing his History of Ireland, The Forest Fairs and Ireland. It was also used extensively by the authors of the Islands of the Four Masters. Recently, however, the work has been subjected to greater critical scrutiny. One contemporary scholar has placed it in the tradition of historical fabrication or pseudo history. Now, it's pseudo everything nowadays. If you can't put a name to it or you can't put your own thing to it, it's pseudo history, pseudo science, pseudo as the back of my butt. Anyway, so another has written its general spurious character and has drawn attention to many fictions, while acknowledging that it embodies some popular traditions. The Irish archaeologist R.A. Stewart McAllister, who translated, I mentioned McAllister before, who translated the work into English, wrote, "There is not a single element of genuine historical detail in the strict sense of the word anywhere in the whole compilation." So, as it says, this is in bold italics specifically for a reason, because I want you to pay attention to the statement. So, as it says, there is not a single element of genuine historical detail in the strict sense of the word anywhere in the whole compilation. R.A. Stewart McAllister. He was a professor of Celtic archaeology at University College Dublin, UCD. Retired his retirement in 1943. During the period, he worked at the ancient Irish royal site of the Hill of Tara and was responsible for editing the catalogue of all known Ogham inscriptions. So Ogham inscriptions is the original Irish language from Great Britain and Ireland. Many of the translations of Irish myths and legends are still widely used today. So Mr. McAllister here was the main man. He was the go-to guy for all this information on Ireland and its history. So the modern analysis of Irish genetics and genealogies. So as you can see here, what I've written is, given that Ireland has such a rich history, albeit considered fabrication, which has parallels to other cultures across the continent, specifically the Israelites, the Greeks, the Scythians, the Phoenicians, I decided, given the fact that there are whole mythological cycles with genealogies to match in Ireland, I could simply prove the myths to be true by using modern Irish genetics as an example, or as a sample, rather. So, for the purpose of this exercise, I use my own genetics as the sample, just as any other native Irish Gael or Gael person can. So, in the image is the High King Brian Baru. So, many Maxinals on his island claim descent from him and many other ancient kings of Ireland. So, there's numerous kings of Ireland. Another great one that will be mentioned later on is Niall of the Nine Hostages, who the O'Neills descend from. Um, and Mr. Baru here, I am said to be descended from the McMahon, Tom and McMahons. So as you can see here, I'm not going to read this. You can have a read of it yourself, just out for your own curiosity. So that's the McMahons there. The McMahons ultimately descend from the O'Briens or the O'Briens, and then they ultimately descend from the Dalcassians. So if you go back through the Irish genealogies, it gives you quite a detailed king's list on who we essentially descend from. So I say we as in my lot. So just to give you an example of this. So in the next slide, there is the seps of the Dalcassians. So as you can see, the O'Brien would be the Barrows, Brian Barrow's lot, McMahon, I descend from them. But if you look at any of these names here, O'Brien, Maloney, O'Kennedy, Gavin, O'Mahony, etc., 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 you can have a read of them yourself. There is a genealogical connection. Now, I have done the family tree DNA, which is the basis of this particular presentation and project. So I am this can't be simply proven by because there is O'Mahony's, McMahons, obviously Mahons, Griffins, O'Briens. We all are related, but obviously there's only a certain sample size we can use within the family tree DNA. But this is legit. So when I originally decided I was going to undertake this project, I knew that there was these genealogies, and essentially said to myself, "Well, I'm Irish. I know I'm a McMahon, and I know I'm specifically a McMahon for Connacht, which is Western Ireland. That to prove these genealogies of Irish people going back and forth between the continent, I should essentially just get my DNA done. I can prove it." So, as you can see here, so I done my DNA with Family Tree DNA, and I specifically wanted to use this because I had this ancestry map. So I essentially come from the R1B DNA subclade, and my official one is RBH3210, aka the Nokia. So as you can see, they came up. Now this is the out of Africa theory here in play here, but you can see genetic testing that's been done via these lads that they've been all across Europe. So to ask the question, if there was no truth in Irish mythology, then with me coming from specifically this ancient Gaelic family, why does it show them coming up from the Middle East and spreading outward via Western Europe and into Asia? Like you can argue Genghis Khan's lot there, Iran, Iran, Iran. You know what I mean? Now, we will do another video specifically on these bloodlines or haplogroups. But as I said to you, I don't want to bore you too much, and we're already coming into nearly 30 minutes of me chatting. So, the other side of the family is the O'Neill dynasty. So, my ma is an O'Neill, and she comes from the north, and specifically, this is Northern O'Neill territory. So, as it says, there's another, as I said previously, with the old Brian Baru being a High King, there's another famous High King, Niall the Nine Hostages, and the vast majority of people in Ireland can claim their descent, and obviously from people further afield, given the fact that many Irish people emigrated from Ireland due to the genocide that was so-called potato famine. There was blight in the potatoes, all right, but there was plenty of food being exported to feed the British Imperial War effort. So, as you can see, the O'Neill, grandson of or descendant of Niall, aka Niall of the Nine Hostages. So, the modern DNA analysis of Niall of the Nine geneticists have found that 21% of men from the northwestern Ireland, 8% of them from or substantial percentage of men from the western and central Ireland, and about 2% of men from New York all borders Y chromosome haplotype. So again, this can essentially be proved by genetics. This modern genetic testing shows there's Irish people all over the world with this genetics. But then again, this is the mtDNA side, the mitochondrial DNA, or the maternal line. Now, bear in mind H, and bear in mind R1B. Now, I will talk about this in the later video, but I'm already running out of time here now. But as you can see, they come up from Greece, up through Iberia, Ireland, north into Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Now, if you go back into the recesses of your mind, or the last couple of slides in this video, they specifically say that the Partholonians, the Faribault, the Mians, the Teutonic man have all gone back and forth between this whole region. So again, to quote Mr. McAllister, or if there was no such truth in any of this myth, then why does my genetics prove that there is obvious truth there? Now, as I said to you, coming into the next couple of videos I'll be specifically talking about blood types, this H and R1B, and I will further elaborate on the importance of Irish genetics and the importance of the Irish mythologies, or the myths rather, or truths, or whatever you want to call it now. But I shall finish up here now because we're coming up on half an hour here, me talking now. So, in conclusion, given what you can see here from the family tree DNA ancestral origin migration maps data, you can clearly see evidence of migrations back and forth from the continent to Ireland. So, when I originally decided I was to do this project, I selected family tree DNA specifically for this data point. So, again, if the Irish stories were simply just myth, then why does the genetic evidence back this up? There will be more videos discussing these genealogies and other mysteries, and I'm going to end this presentation here so it's not to overload with information, number one. So please like, share, subscribe, follow. Cheers, regards, C, aka me. But I do want to take the time to thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative, and I hope it's maybe inspired something in you to look deeper into your own history and your own culture, because given the present circumstances, I think we need to defend this at all costs. Take from that what you shall will, or take from that what you will. I'm going to sign out here. But again, thank you very much, folks, for taking the time to watch my presentation. Regards, C.